It's a miracle.
Is it working? Can you hear me?
Yes, I see, but you're sideways.
So I should do it the other way?
Yeah, flip it.
Fuck my whole program up, Allison. God
Sorry.
damn it.
There
Now
you
I have to
go.
sit here and hold my phone. I was
Yes.
actually using this tripod that you guys bought me for once.
That is like the biggest tripod for this
No.
little phone. How?
It was gonna be on my table. You're gonna see you're gonna have the look down angle, the one
That's
that all the kids
awesome.
use when they fucking do selfies.
Hi everybody, we're live with Brandon Novak.
I have a captive audience of Ruby and Theodore.
Hi Ruby, hi Theodore.
They are
Very
reading
nice.
my new book.
Oh, very
That's all I
nice.
can see of that. I can't really talk about that.
We can't wait to read it. Streets of Baltimore coming out soon. So I'm filming out of Boca Raton. It's like, I don't know, 80 something degrees here. Is it cold up there where you are in Philly?
It's like I'm in Philly, downtown in the city, and it's like 62, and just had major like dark cloud kind of deal. Which would attend to the disheveled look that I have. I was out jogging 2 minutes prior to this, so
Nice.
you get me all sweaty and fucking sexy.
Oh, good, because I put on clothes for you today. So
I
thought you'd appreciate that.
Stupid thing.
I decided to put on pants today and be an adult. You know, I've been home for 3 weeks. I figured today I could at least put some clothes on. So.
Well, I'm glad I could do that for you. Usually I shoot for the opposite. I prefer women to take clothes off, not put them on when they're gonna like.
Yeah. Oh, it says we're getting echoes, so we're gonna try to fix that. Bear with us for a second.
Cool.
I have a little.
I hear echo too.
Yeah. So we're gonna try to get this echo situation cleared, hopefully. So what else is new? How are you doing, and how is your mom?
I'm trying to find an angle to where I don't have to hold this.
How's mom doing?
She's good, but you know that's like it's really a tough demographic. Like this coronavirus, as you know, is affecting everybody, right? Either directly or indirectly. Unfortunately, everyone's affected.
Yeah.
But the people that are really hard to manage and absolutely fucking micromanage are people like my mother, 78-year-old women who like social distancing was never in their vocabulary. They're very touchy, they're hands-on, they want to get in your face to talk. And when you try to tell her like, Mom, 6 feet apart, she doesn't like to be told what to do, and B, it doesn't make sense to her, and it's tough. So it's like dealing with a child almost, you know?
Yeah. So you're visiting her and doing like grocery deliveries and things like that? What are some of the things that you're helping with?
I go down there, and as you guys might have saw in my last video, I was concerned about her health, so I went down and I made her work out with me, and she enjoyed it. She seemed to like it. I want to do more videos like that with her. Her and I pair well together. And yeah, I go down, I get her out of the house. I surprised her yesterday because I had to go to Baltimore to film for the documentary, my documentary, Where's My Needle, which will be finished in literally the editing began today. So 4 months time it will be finished. Joe Franz is editing, my co-author. And
nice.
I had to do some pickup shots for that. So I just randomly surprised her and popped up at her house and put her in my car and made her drive with me to Chick-fil-A and then hung out with her at her house for a little while.
You're such a good son. Aw, that's awesome. Yeah. So let's go back because you talked about jogging and exercising. So what are you doing to stay fit and healthy, and also some advice for people watching, how they could practice their fitness regimen at home? What are you up to?
Oh, you know, right now, more importantly than ever, you know, the world is really misguided, and there's a lot of, you know, information that's being given that no one knows if it's like truth or false, and people are looking for direction. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for safety, security, all these things that are like vital to everyday life and the people in it. Unfortunately, we don't have that right now. As you know, we're all quarantined, right? We're recommended by the government to stay in our house, go out and not publicly socialize in groups of more than 2 or whatever your family dynamic looks like. And so you have to implement something in order to not lose your goddamn mind, right? Like the first couple of days I woke up and I was consumed with fear and panic. And it was like when I was using, I remember I was using, and I ended up going to jail for a year. My first charge that my first charge that I actually held, that I had to go do some serious time on. And I remember in the middle of the night, it was like my first or second night in, I had this dream that going to jail and doing my 11.5 months was all a bad nightmare. And I woke up like, God, I'm so glad that, and I was still in jail. I had that same dream here with this, you know. I went to bed one night, right? The first thing I'm doing is I'm practicing controlled media consumption, right? I only watch it at 11 p.m. I watch the first 10 minutes of the news, because if I watch it all day, it will dictate the terms of how my day will play out.
Right.
So the first day or two before I came up with that concept, I was watching the news, you know, because I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to be aware, but then it ended up sucking me down this rabbit hole. And the next thing I know, I'm consumed with fear. I'm consumed with panic, uncertainty, you know, all these things. And I went to bed that night, and that night in the middle of the night, I had a dream. I thought that I was having this dream, that it was all just a terrible nightmare. And I woke up thinking, thank God it was and I realized it wasn't a nightmare, it was real, right? Yeah. And I was like, fuck, this is serious. And for the first time, the severity of the nation state really sunk in with me. So I'm like, something's got to give. I need to man up and do what needs to be done to make sure my mentality stays intact, or else I'm gonna lose my mind. So what I did was, okay, the gyms are closed. Okay, well, I've set up a routine where I work out 5 days a week, and I have 5 different routines that I do in sets of 3. So today I did it, and then when I'm done the sets of 3, then I go outside and I jog 3 to 5 miles. You know, and that's how I start my day. Nothing else happens before that. I wake up, I eat 3 tangerines, 1 kiwi, my workout, jog 3 miles, come home, get a shower, feed my cats, change the litter box, and then jump into work. That sounds really like frivolous and fucking minuscule, but I hate to continue to revert back to when I was doing 11.5 months in jail, the first 9 days in solitary confinement, very similar to this, but there's a lot more perks. That what I learned is the sooner you get a routine, the quicker your days go, and it like makes sense.
So that's good. So less media consumption. Let's tone down the fear and anxiety.
Because what happened was I read an interview that a school teacher in China had done. And she said, if I would have knew, because China has kind of like made it through and in the clear somewhat, pray to God. She said, if I would have knew now, well, if I would have knew then what I knew now, this is what I would have told myself. And what she said, the first thing is I would have not watched the news, right? That was the first thing. Now, the second thing was I would have accepted exactly what was going on. And the third thing I would have done was not put expectations on how things should play out. You know, and that's really comes back to the program of my sobriety. Acceptance is the answer to everything. Expectations are nothing but unfulfilled resentments, because all I can truly control is me, my thinking, my attitude, my behavior. The moment I believe that you should think a certain thing, Allison, say a certain thing, or feel a certain thing, you are 100% going to let me down. And now I'm full of fucking resentments. And again, in Alcoholics Anonymous, it tells us that resentments are our #1 offender that will absolutely lead us back to a drink. And for me, to drink is to fucking die, and that's unacceptable. So I will do whatever it takes. And I kind of just implement that program into this monstrosity, if you will.
Well, that's amazing what you're doing while you're home quarantine. So tell me a little bit about where you are. What kind of, 2 things, safety precautions when you go to get essentials like groceries, and how are you protecting yourself? And then the other thing is, what is it like in Philly? Are there lockdown situation, curfew? What are we seeing in the city?
We're not seeing a lot in the city, and that's really good. That's really good. And I believe that people are really taking heed to this. Even the ones that were kind of like the naysayers and not buying in to the fucking, you know, overall vibe that was out there now are, right? You're affected directly or indirectly. One way this thing is attacking us all as a whole collectively. So outside is slow. When I go out, I have rubber gloves, and I have a face mask. And I practice the 6 feet social distancing guideline that they suggest. I was wearing the mask prior to them enforcing that everyone needed to wear a mask, because people were like, you don't need it, you do need it. And I said, if you knew what the fuck I needed or didn't need, we wouldn't be in this position, right? Like, no one fucking knows. So I'm just trying to use sensible judgment. I'm erring on the side of caution, and I'm believing, because I have a conscious contact with my higher power. I'm as spiritual as all get out. I've had that spiritual experience to know that in my heart of heart, God is real, and he did not bring me this far to leave me now. So I choose to see this, right? Oh, how we started this out. What are you doing for your mental? How are you staying sane? What are you doing for your psyche? I believe that my mentality absolutely will create my reality. All comes down to perception and perspective. So I choose to see this, right? The child of God that I am, through having that spiritual experience that came only from the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, I choose to see this as us being divinely inconvenienced. That's all.
Right. So
One day this will make a lot of sense.
Yes, maybe we need a little bit of break to focus on our mental health and
Absolutely.
to focus on things that we didn't have time for before, but now we see things more clear. What do you say to people in early recovery going through all this anxiety because of the coronavirus? What advice would you give them?
You know, I was told in the very beginning of sobriety, right? And life had never looked so bleak. Just woke up off life support for 7 days. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. Things couldn't have gotten any worse for me, right? And my therapist said to me, the same woman that I still see today privately, she said, Mr. Novak, I want you to remember, if you stick to the basics, God willing, you never have to go back to the basics, right? Because now, coming up on 5 years of sobriety, I can get lost in like work meetings, mortgage payments, car notes, flights to catch, hotels to stay, money, property, prestige, and really forget that my primary objective when I came in was that all I wanted to do was get sober. That's all I wanted. And when I got sober in the very beginning, right, they told me there's going to come a point in time where your back's against the wall. No one will be around to help you. And you're going to have to rely on a power greater than yourself. That will be the only way you will get yourself through whatever the situation is. And I can promise you, through this, I've had a conscious contact with my higher power since day one of my sobriety, and prior to that, but it's definitely strengthened in this period of time. That when I have the ability to have this awareness, right? So when I see myself starting to go to that edge and go down that rabbit hole, the first thing I do is I ask God to guide and direct my thoughts. And to not allow me to be consumed with fear, panic, anxiety, you know, and I'll call another alcoholic really fast, like really, really fast. Because see, I've been diagnosed as an alcoholic, right? And which means that I possess this alcohol diluted brain that lies to me in my own voice, right? And after a while and that's what's crazy about this. The opposite of addiction is connection, right? So the answer to addiction is connection. Together we can stay sober. By myself, I am sure to fucking drink again, right? So that's the truth. That's a fact. That's the commonality. But now take in today's current state of the world. Everyone is quarantined. Practice social distancing. Cannot gather in groups, stay 6 feet apart. Right. That's the opposite of what we were taught to do. That's a fucking dilemma. And when the stakes are high for alcoholics and addicts such as myself, right, we have to revert back to the only thing that was able to lift me of the obsession or rid me of the desire to want to drink and drug, and that was a power greater than myself. And number 2, I have to attend Zoom meetings. Number 3, I have to call fellow alcoholics and addicts to kind of it's almost like a welfare call, right? I have to check in with people to let people know that, like, hey, I'm feeling this. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm thinking. And they're like, whoa, 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 no. Or we're going to be okay. Or breathe. Just breathe. Take a breath. Because I can forget to breathe sometimes. Or maybe you should take some time to eat.
What about the meetings you were talking about? You said Zoom. Now, for people that are home and obviously they don't have that connection, that face-to-face and peer support and NA and AA meetings, where do you recommend that they go? Where do you go every day online?
You're talking to the most computer illiterate person that you've ever met in the world. So much so that I'm 40 some years old, born in 78. Don't really know the math. It's a long, weird story. I've just received my first laptop the other day via Banyan sending it to me because they're like, something has to change. You don't email, you don't really do anything. You're stuck in like the dinosaur age.
Is this the push you needed? You needed a quarantine to get you to start using
Yeah, right.
Well, that's, hey, listen, first time.
So as far as like me giving recommendations on what Zoom meetings to meet, I really am not even sure of how to sign into that laptop. But what I can tell you to do and how you can absolutely be directed to Zoom meetings is go on Facebook. And I can't get off this to tell you what I look up. But all over Facebook, there's Zoom meetings. And they have the codes, you know. That's really all. I can't really direct you to a specific place that has them. They're all over Facebook, though. It's ridden with it.
Okay, so they can go on Zoom. I know there's a couple also, like NA by phone and intherooms.com, so that's always good. So what's the first thing that you're going to do once this quarantine is lifted, hopefully soon? Where do you want to go? What's the first thing you want to do?
To tell you the truth, I'm not really that affected by this. I'm kind of into this whole introvert aspect of things, right? Because I was going so much. And then I'm the kind of guy that when I'm not going, right? Like my planner.
But you love to travel. You were just, where were you? In Barcelona?
I was in Barcelona. But
so
look, okay, so this is January, if you could see that. And you can see every day, except for maybe 3 in January, have something written in.
Yeah.
So that means I'm going to every one of these appointments, meetings, interviews, speaking events. There's only 1, 2, 3. There's 4 days with nothing written in them, right? So that means I was busy every day except for 4 days. And then when those 4 days come, because I go so much, and the people that I like to surround myself with, my mentors, when I'm home, I'm like, okay, well, I know that Joe Tuttle's not sitting home on a Wednesday, so I can't sit home on a Wednesday. I have to do something. So I couldn't sit still. I couldn't be with me. Not because I avoided it, but because my brain just wouldn't stop, because I need to obtain this. I have money, property, and prestige, right? Which always will divert me from my primary purpose. I told you in the beginning of this, all I wanted when I got in here was to just get sober, right? Stick to the basics, God willing enough to go back to the basics. God and the world, I've found, have a way of right-sizing me. So now I've been brought back to the basics. Trusting God, cleaning house, and helping others. What that means is find a power greater than myself. It's the triangle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Finding a power greater than myself, trusting it. Cleaning house is the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and helping others is taking someone else through the 12 steps. Guess what? I've been doing all 3 of those sides of the triangle since day 1 of this quarantine. I've been now brought back to the basics, not by my own design, but by the power greater than myself, being divinely inconvenienced. So I'm not the guy that's fucking chomping at the bit like, oh man, I can't wait for this to be over so I can run out and run a marathon. I jog 3 miles a day. I go for a walk. I go to the grocery store. I practice social distance. I'm not really feeling like I'm missing out on anything. I am missing out on like going to meetings. Right? Like going to meetings and seeing a bunch of alcoholics collectively in a group and like seeing my friends in person. But I'm not climbing the walls here. Like I'm pretty cool.
That's great. So, you know, we were watching the news earlier, minimally, but
problem number one.
We did see that there's been a spike in alcohol sales. Yes. What do you think that's going to do to affect you know, people currently using now? I mean, what
I think it's
advice?
going to get worse. It's going to continue to get worse, but that's the nature of the beast. That's the progression of alcoholism or addiction as a whole, right? If you've already, you know, come to the realization that, hey, I have a problem, right, with drugs or alcohol, meaning that you can no longer drink or drug without repercussions. Guess what? It doesn't get better. It always gets fucking worse. But now you take the weight of the world on top of it. People that might have been functioning alcoholics, right? They go to work, they slice back fucking 30 martinis during lunch, and then they go to gentleman's happy hour after, whatever that looks like to whoever I'm talking about. But now they're like fired from their job. Right now they're stuck at home with their wife, a lot of bickering back and forth. Now insurances are being lost because they're no longer employed, because most Americans have insurance through their employers. The progression, the snowball effect is taking place, and their drinking becomes out of control because, like, the reality of their situation is starting to look pretty shitty, and it's not getting any better, right? A lot of uncertainty, no clear-cut direction on what's happening in the world. People looking for guidance, and they've just been fired, they've just been laid off, they can't stand fucking being at home with their wife for another day. Their kids won't stop screaming, I can't go to work, but the liquor store, I'll go get a bottle. And then that continues to take place, and all they're trying to do, and I'm speaking from experience, what I've done, minus the marriage and the kids, is having another drink to escape the reality that they have created for themselves, but add the weight of the world on it. Now they're having another drink to escape the reality that, yes, their behaviors have caused, but also the weight of the world has caused. It's almost like a justifiable fuck your life up kind of thing, you know? And then what's going to happen is this is going to blow over. This is merely going to be a moment in time, ladies and gentlemen. It is. It is. I know it in my heart of hearts. I'm not just talking fucking nonsense to hear my own voice. It's going to blow over. And when it blows over, there's going to be a lot of financial repercussions. There's going to be a lot of emotional repercussions, a lot of psychological repercussions. And we're really going to have to come together, God willing, as one, a unit, as a whole, to repair the damages that have been done.
So what can people do to help? Let's say they're out there and they want to help. I mean, you know, there's a local tattoo parlor that donated masks. You know, people aren't using some of the equipment maybe that they wouldn't otherwise, since their business is shut down. What are some of the things in the community, like feel good stories? Have you heard of anything? Delivering food? I know that we're doing that down in South.
My dear friend, he runs a really rad Instagram page called Philly Unknown. And the second one is Second Indie. They make face masks, and he sent me this story yesterday. And what they had done was they made all these face masks, and yes, they're giving them the first responders and the hospitals, but they took them into the masses. They took them into Ground Zero of Kensington, to where the people that they don't have the privilege to be current with the state of affairs the nation are in. Why? Because they don't have a TV. Why? Because they don't have like a significant other to say, honey, look at what I just read in the paper. Like, no, they don't have that. Therefore, like, they're just out there. It's business as usual, trying to get another bag. And it's sad because I've been there. So what they did was harm reduction, right? They went in and they gave them all masks. They gave them gloves, and they did a really beautiful piece. Again, man, I believe that, for me, and this is just my opinion, right? This isn't a factual statement that I'm about to make, factual for me. But I believe that I was walking around this earth acting as if I was owed this, right? That I was entitled to this beautiful world, this beautiful beach, a flight at my fucking fingertip, a rental car to pick me up. Like, I'm entitled to all this. And like, I believe, again, the world is kind of right-sizing me, saying, no, you're not. You're not entitled to any of this. You know, maybe you should practice, like, adding more pollution to the world. You know, if you can walk 3 blocks, why not walk as opposed to drive? You know, it's just it's the world doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves. And we saw this global pandemic being a talk not too long ago, saying that, like, the pollution is shit, like, we need to fix this. It was in the whole presidential debate stuff, which I don't really get involved with, and I'm not trying to make this a political talk. But the world needed to breathe.
Right.
And we're not entitled to any of this. This is a luxury that we've been granted, and we need to treat it as such.
That's good. That's good advice. So for people tuning in now, we were talking about quarantine and some solutions that you have for people who haven't heard it before. What are you offering in terms of advice? You said discontinue, media viewing.
The three cardinal rules that allow me to make it through each day without losing my fucking mind, which is pretty tough because it's already halfway gone anyways. But the three things that I practice on a daily basis is controlled media consumption. Number one, first and foremost, control media consumption. I don't even turn my TV on until the sun goes down, and then I don't watch anything. I only watch the news from 11 p.m. till like right after the weather, and then I'm fucking done. I check out. Controlled media consumption, number one. Number two, accept the state of the nation. Acceptance, right? I accept where we're at, and that it is what it is. Control media consumption, acceptance, and number two is I do not put expectations on where we should be and when we should get there, right? Because those are things that those three things I cannot control. I cannot control, and the sooner that I can understand and accept that, the easier this really tough time will be.
Okay, awesome. We can open it up to
simple.
questions. If anybody has any questions, those in recovery or those struggling, Brandon's always here, 24/7. Any final thoughts, Brandon? What if somebody needs help? Where can they reach you? Any advice you want to give to anybody in general?
Yeah. The first, you guys can always reach and direct me personally directly at 610-546-2608. Was that correct, Allison?
Yeah, that's your other tracking
I was
number.
so fucking excited to do this because it just came to me in my head. Because Allison always tells me to say this certain number and I fuck it up royally. Yeah. But I got it right.
You all know that is Brandon's personal cell phone. And if you can't pick it up, we do have a team. So that is connected to Brandon and his team 24/7.
Call me 610-546-2608, right? Well, again, the opposite of addiction and alcoholism is connection. I promise you, by yourself, you will not find the ability to get yourself out of the position that you may be in. And I'm speaking from experience. I've done it. I've tried it. I spent 23 fucking years trying to fight my way out of the position that I had created myself. I moved all over the world. I changed women. I changed homes. I changed careers. I moved all over the USA. And it didn't work. And finally walking into that 13th treatment center, I didn't even fucking want to go there, but I just had nowhere else to go. And no one else really was welcoming to me being there. That finally I found a purpose, right? I found direction because for the first time I realized that what I do know is that I don't know. And clearly, like, they know, because every time I ask for help, they're here ready and willing to give it to me. I don't know, they do. Can you help me? Now I've become open-minded and willing to follow your suggestions. And guess what? My life got a lot better. And that's just the reality. If I could have thought of another way to try it without going to a fucking treatment center, I promise you I would have. I really would have.
Talking about treatment centers, why is it so important for someone to go right now during this situation and not wait?
Well, number one and first and foremost is you have the fucking time, right? There's no excuse as to why, like, other things are going to delay the process. Right. You know, the wife's fucking bar mitzvah, the husband's college, whatever it may be. Christ, the cat just had kittens. Fuck that. Like, and I'm the biggest cat fan in the world. I might delay treatment for a cat having kittens. But no, right now you have the time. That's the reality. And if you wait for the right time to go to treatment, please allow me to be the first person to tell you that day will never fucking come. There's no person in the world that wants to go to treatment or looks forward to going to treatment. But the reality is the issue must be addressed if you're at the point in your life where you can no longer drink without repercussions, right? We talked about that earlier. And number two, with the state of the nation, right? And they're closing down bars, they're closing down watering holes, establishments, drinking establishments, and it's becoming harder to get your drug of choice if you're an alcoholic. And I hate to say it, and I wish I were lying, but the only two withdrawals that you can literally die from is alcohol and benzodiazepine, because it puts you in high risk of having seizures. So if you take copious amounts and one day you abruptly stop, your body goes into a state of fucking disarray. Next thing you know, you seize up and like you could die. So those are like the two main reasons that I see for why you should go, I guess.
Somebody also commented, can an addict quit if they're not ready? So what do you say to that? Like, how do you handle the situation?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I didn't know that I was ready this time. People always say, well, how do you know? Why was it treatment center number 13? Why wasn't it number 8? Number 3, number 1, number 12. I'm like, I don't fucking know, man. Like, to be quite honest with you, that there was no new information that I was exposed to or shared with from treatment center number 13 to treatment center number 8. Right? They didn't fucking come up with this cure that finally they were going to give to me, and I'm going to take it and I'm going to be cured. No. What happened was the pain had finally become great enough, right? That upon walking into that treatment center, I didn't know if I was coming or going. I didn't know if I was going for a bed to sleep in for the night, a hot meal to eat, a shower to take, teeth to be brushed. I didn't know. All I knew for certain is that I did not want to feel how I felt anymore. The pain was great enough. I go in there. I don't want to feel how I felt anymore. And you guys start giving me suggestions. Now I'm willing to follow your suggestions. Upon following your suggestions, something miraculous happened. I don't feel how I felt anymore. Now I feel a little bit better than I felt prior to walking in. I continue to follow your suggestions, and it's snowball effects into me getting ready to celebrate 5 years of continuous sobriety. You know, what was the question again?
No, that was right. Some people, how do they quit when they're not ready? And
okay. So that's the thing. It takes what it takes until it takes. And who am I to say what it will be for it to take? Right? I know a lot of people, a lot of my good friends went into rehab because they were dodging a prison sentence, because they were dodging their wife finding out that they were cheating on them. Whatever the case was, 2 in particular, they went to treatment for completely different reasons than to get off of drugs. And guess what? The one just celebrated 7 years, and the other one is right behind me with coming up on 5 years. And they did not go to treatment wanting to get off drugs. One went to dodge a prison sentence because his lawyer said, this will definitely help your case if you go to treatment, as opposed to just showing up in court. And the other one, his wife had it up to here, and she had caught him cheating for like the 12th time. And he said, honey, it has nothing to do with you. It's the drugs that make me act this way. And he didn't believe that, but he didn't want her to leave. So he's like, that's it. I'm finished. I'm going to rehab. He went to rehab hoping that she would just get the fuck off his back and he'd get a hall pass for getting caught cheating. But it didn't play out that way. He's now sober.
That's crazy.
So yes, the answer is yes. Clearly, I'm feeling the effects of being quarantined. I don't have a lot of social interaction, and I like to fucking talk sometimes.
That's okay. We got a lot of people tuning in, so they must like what
we have a captive audience. What the fuck else are they going to do today?
That's true. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Brandon. And
do we have any other questions?
I don't know. Does anyone else have any more questions?
This is Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby. Talk to him, Rubies.
Who do you love more, Ruby or Theodore?
Yeah, I don't have any kids, but that's like if you have 2 kids, it's like, which one's your favorite?
I know.
You
love them both equally.
They're really unique in their own ways.
Very cute. Well, I'm glad you joined us. And if anyone has questions, again, how can they reach you?
You guys can call me at 610-546-2608 directly. Me and my team will do whatever it takes to find you the adequate help that not only you need, but more so you deserve. It's going to be okay. It really is. That day that I walked into that 13th treatment center, there's no word in the English dictionary that could properly suffice to how bad I fucking felt about myself. And my therapist told me, she said, if you play your cards right, today could be the best day of your life. And I thought she had lost her mind for sure. I asked her if she needed a piss test, actually, right? I said, do you need a urinalysis? Because, like, you see me standing before you, walked into my 13th treatment center. I just woke up from being on life support for 7 days. She said, I promise you, if you play your cards right, today could be the best day of your life. Coming up on 5 years sober now, despite, like, you know, ending up in those movies, Jackass, published author, TV shows, skater, all that stuff, that day that I presumed to be the worst day of my life, May 25th, 2015, has literally turned into the best day of my life. So I share that to share with you, lovely ladies and gentlemen out there, that despite the current situation of the state and the world, if we play our cards right, this can really simply come down of a case of us being divinely inconvenienced, and can really reshape and remold our behaviors, our beliefs, our core values, as human beings, not just names, not just numbers. Bring us together as a whole collectively, and can really do a lot of good for the world.
We have another question that just came in. What do you recommend for people that have a loved one struggling during this time? What can they do for them to help them?
You know, what I've noticed is that us addicts and alcoholics, this is a general blanket statement, but it's the absolute truth. Us addicts and alcoholics, we're defiant by nature. We hate authority, and we will never, ever conform unless it becomes our idea, right? So you tell us what we need to do. We tell you I need to fuck off because we know. So what I would absolutely shy away from is coming off demanding, saying you need to do this, you should be here, why aren't you doing that? That's not going to do anything but cause and create a lot of tension and head bashing. What I suggest is that, you know, you be supportive. You don't talk to them or at them, but simply with them. You don't hear them, you listen to them. You be there for them. You set healthy boundaries, right? Absolutely healthy boundaries. That's so fucking imperative, because that can everything that I just said to you prior could easily be misconstrued into becoming an enabler. So you have to set these healthy boundaries and standards. Stand for something or fall for anything. I'm a firm believer in that. And allow them to know that, like, if and when they're ready, you will be there wholeheartedly. You need to love them from a distance to an extent. And this is a very vague statement and very generalized. Right. But honestly, give them little pieces of hope, right? Like, send them a link to my, and this is not me plugging my shit, right? This really isn't. I don't give a fuck if you look into my stuff or not, right? That's not what this is about. But if you know someone that's recovering and that has changed their life around, has had that complete psychic change, that maybe they used to drink or drug with, send them links to whatever they're doing. If you're familiar with my stuff, send them links of what I'm doing, right? My message holds depth and weight. I'm not a guy up here that can just sound really sophisticated, because I have a pretty good vocabulary and I can throw some words out. Send them the fucking footage of me, like, you know, prior to, and then, or I hate to do this because it sounds like I'm plugging myself, and that's fucking lame, but that's not the direction I'm headed in. But just drop little gems to them in a very discreet manner. You know, leave them a book behind of someone that's, you know, because basically what I do on a daily basis is I deliver this message and this lifestyle, which is 100% accurate. Nothing is fabricated, in a form of attraction, right? I make my recovered life. I don't make it. It is. My recovered life, I believe in my mind, but I'm also fucking insane. But my life looks very fucking attractive, very appealing, very interesting. For lack of better words, you like want to fuck it, right? Because I'm doing all this cool shit, traveling all over, fucking all this rad stuff, and none of it consists of a drink or a drug. And then they say, if that guy can do it, again, my message holds depth and weight. You can look at it, you can read it. It's on the internet. It's out there. If he can do it, then I can do it. And then it becomes their idea. And when it becomes our idea, we excel at a rapid pace. But again, you just got to like really tread lightly, set boundaries, love them from a distance, leave them messages of hope, keep communication open. When they're ready, be there.
Are you doing
power of prayer is major.
Definitely the power of prayer for sure. It's definitely changed your life, and people can see that. So hopefully they can get that too. The online meetings again, are you doing that next week? And if so, how can people tune in? Because I know you did.
Yeah, but last night was our first one. Darren Prince and myself did one. And it maxed out like immediately, which is really unfortunate.
I tried to log in and it maxed out, but that's a good thing though.
But it's good, right? It's like the devil's advocate. It's really good, but it sucks for a lot of people that couldn't see it. But it shows that people are like picking up on the sign of the times. They're doing what needs to be done. So
we got another question. Can you answer this before we have to get off? Can you get a judge to send someone to treatment? Now, in Philly, it's a little different than in Florida. In Florida, there's something called a Marchman Act. So what it is they get assessed to meet criteria, and the judge will determine if that person is a harm to themselves or others to where they have to go to jail or treatment. So that's the ultimatum. I know that in Florida, it's a Marchman Act. What is there an equivalent in Pennsylvania where you are? Or is there something that's
kind of. It's like it's kind of like being 302'd, but which is a very similar approach. But your best shot of obtaining that goal or agenda would be to go talk to the prosecutor, the prosecutor who's trying that case, and the prosecutor will then relay that information to the judge. If the prosecutor feels like that's a satisfied result that they are seeking, right? It's all up to the prosecutor. So if said person has a lawyer, which is probably not. Like, I remember one time my mother went with me to court, right? I did some shit and I ended up in Circuit Court of Baltimore City. And I thought my mother was going on my behalf, right? And she says to my public defender, I'd like to say something, right? When he's in front of the judge. So I stand up and then the judge says, do you have anybody that would like to speak on your behalf? And the defender says, yeah, his mother. My mother stands up in the back of the courtroom, and I'm thinking she's going to say, he's really good. He's got a lot of potential. She says, Your Honor, please send him to jail or rehab. He is a danger to himself and to others. Unfortunately, it didn't play out that way. I didn't go to jail, but or rehab. They let me go out. But yes, you can do it. Just go talk to the prosecutor. If he has an attorney, talk to his attorney, because an attorney would actually. They want that. They don't want to put him in there to be another number. Now, whether he or she wants that is a completely different story. If she doesn't want it,
it's like tough love. You have to do it. They're going to hate you for it. They're going to be upset. They're going to be angry. But then there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that they're going to actually thank you for doing that. It's either that or enabling someone. You have to put your.
That's it. You got to create these guidelines and boundaries, or else what's going to happen is you're going to love them to death, legit.
Right. Well, that's really great advice, Brandon. I don't know if there's any more questions, but it's awesome that you're doing this, and we'll see more of you during this quarantine. So stay safe. And any final thoughts?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in to listen, who actually cared about making this world we live in a better place, and it will get there. It's going to take some hard work and determination. But with those things being done, we'll get to the destination that we're seeking. We just have to do it together.